It's day 13 in the criminal case against Sean Diddy Combs. Let's take a look at what happened inside the courtroom. For those of you wondering how we got to 13, so far we've had 9 days of testimony and 4 days of jury selection. Today, rapper Kid Cudi took the stand, coming in as one of the highest profile witnesses in the case. Now, Kid Cudi testified that he dated Cassandra Cassie Ventura back in 2011. Now, Ventura is, of course, Diddy's ex. Now, during that time, he said Diddy broke into his home after he found out about the relationship. Kid Cudi said that he then got into his car and was driving home to confront Diddy, and that he called him on the way, and that Diddy told him that he would be there waiting. He said that once he got there, no one was there, but his dog was locked in the bathroom, and that Christmas presents he bought for his family were opened. Now, weeks later, Kid Cudi said that his car was blown up on his driveway while he was at home, and that he believed that Diddy was behind it. Images of the car were shown to the jury, including a Molotov cocktail in the front seat and a hole through the roof. Kid Cudi testified that he and Cassie eventually broke up. It was a big day today, so let's break it all down with podcaster and host of Pop Crime TV, Lauren Conlin, who was at the courthouse. Lauren, first off, can you just describe the anticipation surrounding Kid Cudi's testimony today? I want to hear it all.
Yes, it was highly anticipated. They announced, I believe it was on Tuesday, that he most likely would be testifying Wednesday or Thursday. So getting that news, I remember that all of the media was scurrying out of the courtroom to go get their phones and be the first one to release what was to come. And yeah, it was a total frenzy. I mean, I would say the courthouse is always pretty busy, but the last couple of days it's been a little bit quieter, a little bit easier to get in if you're waiting as a member of the public. And then today, yeah, all that went away with Kid Cudi.
So before we get into the nitty gritty, how did you just overall, how do you think he did on the stand?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did fine. I personally think that, his testimony is what happened to him. And circumstantially, it all makes sense. Everything points to Diddy. I am just curious at this point if we are going to hear from the LAPD, if we are going to see some of the police reports that he spoke about and whose name is going to be on them. So I think that, he did his part, but I feel like we need to see just a bit more.
I mean, we finally, I'm glad you talked about that, because we finally got to hear about this this car being blown up in the driveway that we've been hearing about for a long time. And
Yes.
it finally, we got it straight from the horse's mouth. I guess that's a pretty important corroboration, right? They're headed in that direction. Yeah. Or no?
Yeah, and no, I mean, yes, but it's not as simple, I feel like. But something else that came up was during the government's opening statement, they described this incident where Diddy allegedly kidnapped one of his employees to go break into someone's house and go look for Cassie because he thought she was cheating on him. We find out today, shockingly, it was Kid Cudi's house. He literally broke into Kid Cudi's house. Yeah, I did not know that was Kid Cudi. So,
Yeah.
and honestly, neither did a lot of the reporters. So we were like, wait, that's crazy. I mean, listen, I got to give it to Brian Steele because during his cross-examination, he's like, well, there was no forced entry. Your door was wide open. Nothing was taken. Nothing was out of place. And I mean, I can go back a little bit, but you gotta love defense attorneys, man, for really minimizing certain things. But back to the car and the Molotov cocktail, which that was also something new that we learned about. I just kind of thought, somebody hot wired it, or it was some kind of explosives, or but it was a Molotov cocktail that somebody threw into the top section of his Porsche. And we saw pictures. There was, the whole top was just ripped apart. The inside was charred on the seats, on the side of the door. And in terms of the break-in that allegedly happened, or I guess not allegedly, I mean, I'm going to say allegedly here because I just don't know
at this allegedly, point. Just to keep safe. Yeah.
Isn't it funny? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I need to see this police report because nobody was arrested for this break-in, and nobody was arrested for the Molotov cocktail. And actually, again, Brian Steele made a point to say to Kid Cudi, Well, did the LAPD ever let you know that it was a female's DNA that they found at the scene? And Kid Cudi actually said, no, I had no idea. And that was pretty cool, I would say, because it's like you just told him something that he didn't know about a decade long investigation. I mean, or maybe he forgot.
You know what I was thinking about with Kid Cudi on the stand is that he's really the first celebrity who's testified about being on the receiving end of Diddy's, alleged anger. And this is a famous person. This isn't somebody who's
Mm.
just like a regular person and could be easily quieted. So for me, I'm like, that kind of shows that there was a reach there, and that I mean, even celebrities, I guess, weren't spared.
Yeah, and it also shows that people can keep secrets. I personally think secrets are just so hard to keep because we're human and eventually, things come out. And sure, the thing about his car, that's been out for a while. But the break-in really wasn't out. Cassie and Kid Cudi's 1 year relationship, I felt like that never came out. And he told us he went to Connecticut with Cassie for the holidays in December of 2011 after this break-in. Cassie broke up with him. She was nervous and she ended up going back to Sean Combs. She told us this on the stand. And a month later is when his car gets blown up with the Molotov cocktail in January of 2012. And he describes this meeting that he has at the LA Soho House a few days later, because he said at that point, he's like, all right, I'm going to call him. This has to stop. Leave me alone. And he said he got to Soho House, and it was actually another funny moment on the stand where he describes Diddy. D-Rock, the security guard, brings him in, and he describes Diddy in front of this glass window, and he's looking out. His back is to Kid Cudi, his hands behind his back. And he actually said he looked like a Marvel supervillain.
Yeah.
And then, they talked it out, right? It's like they talked it out. They said, sorry for the misunderstanding. And at this point, Brian Steele got Kid Cudi to say, and this was probably a big win for the defense, that they both were played by Cassie. They both felt played. He said that twice. And Kid Cudi was like, yeah, that's true. So you both felt played by Cassie. Yes, we did. And I was like, oh boy. So he said at the end of the meeting, they shook hands and he said, okay, so what about my car? And Diddy said, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they parted ways. And that was that. A few years later, he said Diddy did apologize to him after bumping into him again at the Soho House when he was with his teen daughters at the time, and apologized for everything that happened previously. And but like I said, I'm really interested to hear from the LAPD and some of these reports. And on the witness list next week, actually, is someone from the LAPD and someone from the fire department, as well as Capricorn Clark.
We're definitely going to be looking out for that. Lauren, thank you so
Yeah.
much for catching us up. Really, really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.